Live from Studio A in PressCorps World Headquarters, this is Zero Dark PressCorps. It's a live, community-based call-in show, fielding your thoughts on and tales from the Foxhole War. So join the Discord right now through the link below, sign in through the call queue text channel, and hop in the voice lounge for a chance to share your story. Tonight's developer guest, lead developer Markfoot, community manager Crazy Flying Chicken, and now your host, 13-time winner of the Geoffrey Jennings Award for Excellence in Journalism, Geoffrey Jennings.
All right. Welcome to Zero Dark PressCorps, just as the man said. Here we got, oh my goodness, I forget, what episode is this? I think we've reached 20, or is this 19? I'll figure that out later, but regardless, welcome to Zero Dark PressCorps, and it's been a absolute epic war. It's definitely one for the history books. Not quite 19 level, but it is definitely up there, and so glad to have so many people ready to call in, chopping at the bit. We do have, as mentioned previously, developer guests, Crazy Flying Chicken, as well as Markfoot, who will join us later. And I think this will kind of serve the hole that the lack of dev stream will provide for the community. I don't know. Even though it will not be a dev stream, we're not going to reveal anything here tonight, at least not to my knowledge. But we'll make something out of it. What do you think, KFC? Yes, and I think let me fix that up again, because there's a chance you were not heard. This always happens. Let's see. Just open everything up. All the channels. KFC, why don't you talk again for me?
I was just saying, I think Mark is in the channel, so if we are going to get anything special, it'll be through. Then we can
alright.
Drag him in here.
Is he? There he is. He has that new profile picture. I didn't recognize it at first. Hey Mark, how you doing? Still getting connected, probably. You can't see the mute and deafen symbols on the stream, but they are there. But regardless, I did have some opening questions, as I'm sure he's scrambling to get his headphones on. We did some opening questions. This one's actually probably pointed towards KFC. In case you didn't hear, Sir retired from his position as Discord moderator after, my goodness, how many years of service, of community service to the game?
Goodness gracious, I think 3, maybe 2, probably 3.
3.
But he was been playing the game for longer than that, so might be as close as 4.
Yeah, and he's probably playing the game for about as long as you. So that's hats off to him for just enduring the amount of free work, essentially, to endure that from handling all the community hubbub. But regardless, now that Sir is retired as Discord admin, is there someone that's going to take the role, or will it be folded into your job, KFC?
God, he's been gone less than a week, and I already miss him. There's absolutely nobody who could replace Sir and what he did for this Discord and this community. I've been asked on a couple of occasions whether or not we'll be replacing his role, and my simple answer is I don't think we could. I don't think there's anybody in the community, past or present, that could accomplish what he's done, nor could they maintain what he's set up for us. So at this point, we're just going to let the community evolve as it always has, without his guidance, and hopefully sometime in the future we'll find a pressing need for another admin, somebody who might more embody the newer version or the newer spirit of the community, and then we'll see how that goes. But that being said, I don't think admin really did any. The role admin is really not much different from a moderator. So the admin is just additional permissions, being able to change the server in different ways. But they were, as far as the moderation and Discord moderation goes, we're hoping not a lot will change.
Yeah, all right. So we'll keep it as a tentative no for now, and we'll just see what happens. It's just kind of what happened with the community manager role. I'm assuming with that might be more of a Mark question. But Markfoot, did you have a concerted community manager role in mind when you began the game, or did that kind of just blossom organically?
It was it was definitely more of like an organic thing because I think we need to rewind time and remember when the team was like I think it was 7 or 8 people when we first launched into the pre-alpha, and we were just figuring things out as we were going. Like we didn't have 60,000 people on our Discord. We didn't have a subreddit with like 14,000 people. It was just a couple of people on FOD, which was like a few thousand at the time, and our game had like probably 5 to 10 players throughout the week. I'm not even joking. And on Saturday, it would spike up to basically 120 people would show up to fight in the weekly war, and that was the whole game, and we just set everything up on the fly. There was no here's the community manager, here's the moderators, here's this or here's that. We just rolled it out, and we put things. We added these roles from the community as they came. Like even in the Dev Branch channel, that was something that wasn't planned for. It was just like all organic, and I liked it that way because, like I said many times, especially certainly people on the team, is that I'm a real advocate of making games kind of like how like mod makers make their mods for like other games, because the reason why I like that is because as much of the focus as possible is on the game design, right? It's on the players. It's on the game design. It's about making something cool. Whereas I feel like if you try to go into it with all these different schemes, like, oh, we're gonna have a community manager, we're gonna have this, we're gonna have that, we're gonna have like a PR department, we're gonna, this is how we're gonna market it and do all, like, see, the problem with that is that becomes like the leading factor, right? That becomes where it's already hard enough to make a game like this. It's very hard. And when you add these extra things into the mix, it only gets harder. And just by virtue of us actually being like a business, that's already hard, right? It's already hard. We do have constraints. We have like financial constraints. These things are real. You don't want to add any more onto that, right? So I don't even know how like these larger games with huge like publishers and stuff, it must be so hard for them to try new things because there's all these things stopping them, right? But when there's the least amount of things that are in the way, you can kind of clear your head and just the things you want in your head is what's going to make this game cool, right? And I think that we weren't even like the idea of a community manager wasn't even anywhere in our thoughts until a few years in, right? So.
Yeah, it's always sounded like from every behind the scenes thing you gentlemen talk about, from the dev blog to the stream to just comments, passing comments in the subreddit or the Discord. It's always far more than the player base thinks to realize. At least the mainstream player base realizes. And yeah, it's an exponentially compounding equation that is always expanding with all sorts of variables. And I don't know, personally, I've always maintained that there needs to be minimum like 5 more KFCs to get to the level of complete and total coverage. But that might be in conflict with what this organic approach may be about. So hey, what do I know? But in any case, I'll get to. Well, actually, we'll just do one more question here. One of my questions, because we have a lot of callers, which is great, and I know you gentlemen have limited time. But in terms of the current ongoing global pandemic, how has Clapfoot's workflow been affected by this, worldwide event?
I actually feel like we have it fairly good compared to a lot of other people's situations. I mean, there definitely was a disruption, and certain things had to be like pushed back, and things like our summer update is going to come a little later than usual. But I think overall we can't really complain because so many people have it much worse. I think there was some things to get used to working remote. I think that one thing that I'm definitely feeling sometimes is that it's not as easy to stay in touch with everyone. Obviously, when people are at the office, you tend to, even just by virtue of like, I used to I used to talk to most people on the team almost every day, even if it was just in passing. Or some people like Anthony, I would just have a conversation with him in the morning when he came in, because him and I were usually the first ones at the office. So even if I had no actual meetings with him, we would just talk for 15 minutes about like movies and like video games and stuff like that. And now that we don't have that, there could be like 3 days where I don't talk to him, and then that's when I start feeling like, oh man, this is not good. We need to I need to like at least say hi. So certain members of the team, even if there's absolutely like no official business, I will still make it a point at least once a week. Like, I mean, I think once a week is probably too long, but at the very minimum, if like someone's off working on some really long task, I still want to be able to. I still like ping them in a voice chat and be like, "Hey, so what's going on? I already know what you're working on. I already know everything because you told me yesterday uh, through like text chat, but I just want to ask you the same question again
Yeah.
in voice." So it's like, things like that are I think it's just there are, it's the same problems that everyone's facing, but I have to say overall it's really not been that bad. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate your reservation. In the face of all these people, doctors, nurses, grocery store workers who are working overtime, triple time, physically and mentally. It's I appreciate the reservation. I guess my next question is who. I know this will be the last one for real. How many people in Clapfoot work remotely regularly already? I know Max does because he's, I think, far enough away from the office, at least to my knowledge, that he doesn't come in regularly or at all. Um,
Yeah, there's 3 people that work full time remote. We started with just Max, and then over time,
just a
different
couple more.
people had to float away for various reasons, but
Sure.
we didn't want to lose anyone. And our I think really our team is just like it's like in the history. I mean, I don't want to like jinx myself or anything like that, but in the history of the company, in the 10 years, there's only been there's only been one person who's ever. I hope I didn't forget anything. So if I say that, I'm sorry if I'm saying the wrong thing, and I'm
That's fine.
probably gonna come across as like a terrible person to whoever hears this. But like, I think there's only been one person who ever left the company, and I think because we have like a really strong team and everyone really trusts each other, I think that's the biggest thing. Is, at least for me, that's the biggest thing on a team, is the trust factor. Like, that's why whenever we bring on someone new, it 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 scares me a lot. It scares me a lot
Yeah.
because I don't want to suddenly bring someone in that I can't trust. Because I like right now, I don't. That's the luckiest thing for me. Um, as one of the founders of the studio, is that I don't have to worry about that. I literally do not have to worry. Like, if I just suddenly fell off the face of the earth, I know everyone is gonna just come to work and like do their job as hard as if I was there.
Mhm.
Like there's zero worry on my end. I know everyone's always trying to make the game the best they can, and like I just can't imagine. Every time we bring on someone new, I'm always like, oh man, I don't know, and I'm kind of like paranoid, Like, I have like a paranoia, and so I that's why we really didn't want to lose anyone,
Yeah.
and
that we really just want to.
Well, you heard it here first, confirmed. If there is ever a global apocalypse and every person falls off the face of the earth, Mark wants his employees to come into work regardless of the global firestorms. So, Markfoot, you horrible slave driver, I'm glad we got this. I would pry this answer out of you directly. But I think time for the real tough questions here. Well, not really, but we'll have our guest calling in. And actually, one last question, just for reference. How many, just a number, how many total people work at Clapfoot?
I think we're at 13 now.
13 total people, 13 total developers. Gotcha. All right. Well, we'll get right to it. First off, here, our first caller here tonight, Zero Dark PressCorps. And if you'd like to be a caller, make sure to join through the Discord link below. Click on that Discord picture, join in, and submit yourself to the call queue channel. Just type period or anything, and we'll get you in the order in which whoever gets in there first, and we'll get your questions in. So Wolfie of the 1CMD, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, what'd you have for us here?
Well, starting off well, I didn't realize Markfoot and Crazy Flying Chicken were going to be here, but I guess that's a nice thing. I was originally going to tell a little story about creative play in Foxhole standard
You still
game,
can.
which I still will, but I mean, this may seem like something very shameless, but the thing is that I have like a big concern for the game when it comes to how wars are played, and literally just 1 hour before this happened, I posted to Reddit a long post explaining why, and I would just request from either of the devs to check it out, because I put a lot of work in it. I put about 10 hours just to write it and make sure that that goes through to everyone. This place isn't really the place for a discussion, and I guess I'll just get on to my story. But anyhow, so the thing is with standard games that I always see people pushing the front line. They don't really like to flank. They don't really like to do that much creative things. It's always just tanks, BT, logi, straightforward things, but they never really try to win with underwhelming advantages. They always try to just do the logi, get the storm cans, get the strong stuff, and then push with overwhelming force. And so I hate this way of thinking, because it just creates loops that we see today and that I addressed in my Reddit post. And that's why when I went up against the 82nd Draccos with my FCL team, actually, when we were training, I actually had an idea. So what it was is that when we wanted to they had the tier 1 fob, and when I wanted to mortar it with an LUV, they before I could even start spotting, I looked with my binos and they immediately sent an APC against us. But one thing that I did notice is that the APC had RPGs. So what I did is I went again, but just with infantry, thinking that it would be baited, but it didn't. But I didn't just give up there and just built a Howie so I could get the extra range to just kill the fob straight up. What I did is that I just felt, even though the APC is just 20 armats, I just felt like I wanted to kill it, because heck, I just want to see things explode. And pretty much I have no idea how I thought of this. It just, like, the whole idea just popped into my head, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is how I'm going to do it. So what happened was that I brought the LUV, and there were bushes in the area. I had the LUV sit at the bushes, and two people would be in the bush itself, and the LUV would be parked right next to it, facing the other way, with only a driver inside. The reason for this is because when they look on the radio, they're going to think it's a tank and it's a vehicle. Then they're going to send the APC with RPGs, and all they need to do is just pull the ramp down and the people inside can shoot. And then we would be over. So then we looked like a tank. We started hitting structures with SMG fire, so then it would be baited even more. And little did they know, they took the bait and they didn't look at the radio again, because they see the APC moving away. They felt frustrated. They wanted to chase it. And as soon as it came in, 1-2 disabled it with the stickies, and the third one sealed the deal.
Huh. All right. So I realize you kind of had to combine your your story with your question here. But just to restate your question, was it about the defensive play of Foxhole overall?
No, I wouldn't say overall, but I feel like the game is too defensive. And I'm just gonna, and this is again addressing my red post, but I guess I'll address it a little here.
Yeah. So give us
The
like a
thing
quick
is
bullet,
that-
bullet point on what
Yeah. Yeah, I get what you mean. Because the thing is, I'm a heavy Foxhole competitive league player, and I really love competitiveness within the game of Foxhole because it is very interesting. Heck, even KFC is actually part of my FCL team, and he can tell you all about it, and how much he's had fun using howitzers in there. But the thing is, it can go a lot of ways. There's so many plans, there's so many things, and I think it all comes down to just on the how FCL is designed, which is just just pure open field infantry to infantry combat and absolute mayhem. Because the thing is with Foxhole and the combat system, after being a combat player for 1,000 hours now, the thing is with frontline or just combat in general in the standard game is that it's too upscaled. There's too many. There's so much time on your hands, so you can pretty much build everything. The gun nests are BMATs, which is literally, or any strong structure, as soon as they're teched, they're BMATs, the AT turret, mainly the AT turrets and gun nests. So you can just build up fortresses. So pretty much everything's going to be heavily fortified. It isn't a matter of it's boring, so no one's going to do it. These things are being done by these certain clans and entities, and it just is, and it's boring because when you go to these fronts and you want to actually play the game of Foxhole, but then you just see there's a bunch of gun nests in front of you. Sure that they got nerfed, but it takes so much to kill them, and the randoms, they won't. As much as they do work together sometimes and pull off amazing things, such as mortaring a BT, they usually don't work together. In my experience, and within my time zone, which is 8 hours ahead of EST, or actually 7 hours, but they pretty much don't have any power to push, and due to all the good firepower stuff, like being explosive material and all that, if I wanted to go back and do Logi, all my playtime is gone because it would just be an hour to refine and bring up to the front.
You're saying it just takes too long to do things, and it's just kind of it's too defensively favored. Is that kind of the gist of it?
Yeah,
and I'm sure there's mountains of evidence that you have brought forward. Again, in that Reddit post, which I'm looking at it now, and this looks fantastic. Can't wait to read that. I guess we'll punt that over to Mark and Crazy about what they think about that. About Foxhole overall just being too defensively minded, and realizing that yes, certainly maybe they want to favor defense, but even just too much so.
Yeah. But if I may add one more thing before we punt that question over.
Okay.
The thing is the core issue is that gun nests are just BMATs, AT turrets are just BMATs, and so when all the other things are just EMATs and HEMATs, that's already unbalanced because you're going to need to do all that Logi, and then this goes against persistent warfare. It isn't persistent warfare, it's just clans doing Logi, getting a bunch of stuff, and then they spearhead. But then when they run out of stuff, they go back, do Logi again, or they succeed in fortified gains. That's what I hate the most.
Yeah, gentlemen, what do you have to say to that? Crazy, Mark? I know Spots, you want to get into too. Everyone does.
Do you want to take that one first?
Sure. I would. I know you've been playing a long time, Wolfie, so you might remember this. But would you say that the previous meta was more favorable to your play style? And when I say that, back when were you around when whole regions would flip in a?
Yeah, I was around.
Would you say that was better?
I would say that it wasn't. The thing is, I wouldn't say it was better, or no, I would say that it wasn't good at the very least, but I don't think it's better than what we have now, in my opinion. Because...
Okay, well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, because, just to talk about it a bit, the front lines there, at least they were competitive, there were foxholes, and they would cost you, because it was the gun nest and AT used to be RMATs, right? it would cost you to fortify strong points, which would be very interesting but now it's just brainless fortresses everywhere of just gun nests. And so pretty much it would be competitive because these things are easily broken.
Yeah. So I think what you're getting at, I think what I might think you're getting at is that maybe it is better that things went from before the days of yore, where 3 regions would flip in a 6 hours. But now we've gone the other way, which is fine. But maybe it's not in a good way. Maybe it's not in the way that feels good. So like you said, just lines and lines of gun nests, which I think was partially addressed with the introduction of trenches. But now you just have these what many claim to be an unsatisfying constant trench spam, and it can be annoying, and there's all the whole debate about that, and it's extremely complex issue. But I guess again we'll punt it back to Mark and Crazy about what they feel about maybe not defensively. It's gotten more defensively, but not in a good way, not in the way that feels as satisfying as we would all hope.
Yeah. It's. I think what you said was pretty accurate. Like for the longest time before, we'd struggle with the opposite problem, which was that you would do all this work, you wake up the next morning, and all your work was gone. Especially in the pre-update 26 times, where we had the port bases. What would often happen is things were more fluid, and I think there were definitely some like pros to that, right? For sure. But what we arrived at is once I would push all the way to the port bases of the other side, and then they couldn't push any further because the port bases were they were like invincible, they were magical, and then it would stay in that state until the side that was winning would just completely like tire out after a few days, and then what would happen was actually, you know what? Sorry, if I have the time, I like to even go further back in history. Before the port bases, like in our original world conquest, it would just be like you go to sleep and the next day the war would be done, right? And then you have back to the port bases. That was sort of you would push all the way to their port base. You couldn't win the war. You were just kind of sitting there until everybody kind of got tired, and then they would slowly quit, and then the other side will push all the way back, and maybe they would win. But sort of like this weird thing that happened there. But the thing that sucked was that if you tried to do something that was persistent, if you tried to build a base up, if you tried to claim a town and hold it, the next day it would just be gone. Like there was just pretty much like very very low chance it would survive. So like what we have now definitely has the trade-off of like things are slowed down, and I think that to some degree, I agree with the sentiment that some of the creativity is lacking. I think Max and I were just talking about this afternoon, and I was touching upon a few of these things, like how I wish there were more ways to like move around. I think especially when I think especially when the map is only 3 columns. That's why sometimes we do. There's a multiple reasons why we do this, as I mentioned last time. But one of the factors, one of the I guess side factors of why having a smaller world is more limiting is because you just end up having basically 3 like bottlenecks, and you're not able to flank around. You can't do anything interesting. You can't try to do like a beach landing, or you can't do any of those things. You're just sort of stuck in these three like columns, right? There's no like the strategic space that you can operate in is more limited than we'd like. So there, I agree that I actually like agree fully with the sentiment that you have. But again, the thing I want to hammer on time after time is that like it's just a series. It's just a series of like trade-offs, and I think you put it best. Like we had some trade-offs in the past. We have some trade-offs now. Some might argue that the trade-offs were better before. We think the trade-offs are better now, but it's still it's still like a trade-off. So it's not like binary, right? It's not like, oh, we fixed it, it's better now. It's fixed for everyone. No, it's like now it's better, but there are new flaws. One of the flaws is this, and then we just have to keep rolling. We have to go to the next iteration. The next iteration will have its own set of trade-offs. Again, hopefully it will be better, right? But the one thing that I really want to see, one thing I want to re-enable is more like the beach landings that we saw a few weeks ago. There was a colonial beach landing, a massive beach landing. It was 100 people involved. It was the craziest thing that we've seen in the game like this whole year. And it failed. I think it failed probably because of some of these issues. I think that the fact that something like that, you weren't able to creatively make something like that happen, that definitely bothers me, and I think it bothers us all. I think we want to allow more of those types of things to happen, right? So
Yeah, it's extremely tricky, and unfortunately, we'll have to move on to the next caller because I think we wanted to hold the devs to I think about just an hour and a half because they have families to go back to. But Wolfie, as always, incredible insight, and he does have a Reddit post. A very good detailed one, and they're usually very compelling reads. So, you know what, Wolfie, thank you so much. I'm sorry we could not explore the whole depth of everything that we almost never can in every call, but
I mean, just one more last thing, and it's like I understand that the game is really hard to make. I mean, I was there for the logistics roundtable. It's a very hard thing to balance, even from players' perspective, because if you're because I did know that if you made it too offensive, then the wars would be over, so on and so forth. And the Reddit post is there, and I would love to, and I love discussing. So if you have any questions, feel free to just ask. So yeah.
All right. Well,
thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I just have to bring about a quick point about the last thing you mentioned about gun nest. I did some calculations. Gun nest costs 130 BMATs for each gun nest.
All right, yeah, that's good to know. That's good. Honestly, the numbers are always changing. I honestly forget myself. Whenever I'm not doing press things, it's usually just backline scrapping and a whole lot of trucking, which is my personal favorite thing. Yeah, that's actually really good to know. You know, it's also tough.
And fight.
Yeah, it's also tough because people love making tables and graphs and strategy guides. You cannot make one in Foxhole. At least I haven't been able to in the past like 4 to 5 years because it's impossible. But in any case, moving on, we have our next caller here. Welcome back to Zero Dark PressCorps, Draccos of the GDWH. Remind me, what does GDWH stand for?
God damn war hero, which I love saying all the time.
Yeah, what you got for us, Draccos?
Just saying hello, guys. Hope you're doing well during the coronavirus epidemic. It's been really rough on a lot of us. A lot of people are struggling right now. Guys are doing well. I'm gonna have to put the dog out of the room. I forgot to do that. Hey, babe, can you get the dog out of the room over here? Thanks. Get the big old bow wow in the background. He's actually my support, emotional support animal through all this, and he's in the background just trying to get in on the call. That's all he's doing. Big boy, you gotta leave me be right now. Guys, love you guys, what you're doing right now. I did have a question for the developers. Guys, I'm going to throw it out there real fast. We were just talking about it just not too long ago. When somebody's dropping off Logi, and you see in the upper left-hand corner of your screen now, which is awesome. I love the new update. You now have the option to give a commend to the person dropping off said goods, which is awesome. And the question is, when you do this, even if you don't have a commend to give, if you do the green button, does it still give them one? Because I've heard on the streets that it does. And I heard even if you don't have commands, you still get a commend for it if you hit the button.
Oh, is this a bug?
Sounds like a bug.
Oh, no.
It's not a feature. Darn. I heard they get one anyway. I don't know. I'm asking you guys. Is that true?
It's the first I've heard of it, but if it is, fix it.
Yeah, go to chat, as always. Go into the Foxhole official Discord and submit something to Bugs. Maybe some enterprising pair will test things out in the live shard. But yeah, that's actually really good to know. If
so just to clarify, it's not supposed to happen.
Yeah, no, for sure not.
You're not supposed to get free commends.
No.
Yeah,
it's not free. You're delivering supplies. It's just people are too poor to give you commends, so the game just goes ahead and give you one.
It's welfare. Commend welfare.
Actually,
There goes another question right there. Like, can we get clearer stats on exactly what you got to do to get commends in the game? Because I do everything.
I'll even expand that question to: is it possible to get stats on all sorts of things, like amount of buildings constructed? I know number of kills is a very controversial one because it might encourage people to kill, but just all sorts of stats that really help illustrate war and feedback. I know. Do you have those stats? Period. Do you have those stats? Period.
Yeah, we have those stats.
Okay.
It's something that we had in a primitive form at one point, and over time we've made the system more sophisticated. Actually, recently, as a part of the back-end work that we've done, about like update or two ago, we actually really buffed up our system for tracking these things, which is really great because it also really helps us in validating our game design decisions too. Like sometimes we want to know if something is being used, and we go to these numbers so we can see if something's working as intended or not. I mean, it doesn't give you the full answer. The numbers are definitely not the driving factor in most cases. It's more like validating or invalidating certain like assumptions, rather than it is something that is going to lead a decision, right?
And to go back to the question, Draccos was asking specifically about like any specifics. What is needed to get commends? Is there any chance of those being released?
Max, it looks like you're going to say something.
I've been saying this to people for a long time, that basically with the commend system, it's still very rudimentary. I don't think we've really touched the commend system in like 3 years. It's been like pretty much it's a neglected system in the entire game, and I know that one day we'll come back to it. It's been a low priority for us because I think if anybody's been a part of any like other MMO betas, you find that any kind of system of progression will always have to be reset constantly, and it'll take lots of tweaks and changes. So it's been a low priority for us. What we'd like to see instead is to see people with doing the behaviors that we'd like to see, like running logistics, building crates, and then later on, when we add like a realistic or a better commend system and progression system, that it's really just reinforcing behavior that they're already doing, as opposed to using a progression system to dictate what players are doing. So I guess in answer to your question, we are aware of what the commends, where you get the commends. They're probably not very good right now. Like, I know for a fact, like, there was a bug a while ago that you could get a lot more commends by producing more garrison supplies. It was just simply the thing that gave you the most commends. And we just fixed that one thing. And we know that there's other things broken with that. There's probably one really good item that you can produce that will give you lots of commends. We're aware that it's probably not working as intended, but until we're ready to return to it, it's just not a priority for us.
So if I could jump back in and just say this here, guys, GDWH stands for Goddamn War Heroes. I always throw out there. But I like to pride myself in the fact that as a player that's been playing real-time strategy since high school with the chess team back when I was a kid, I'm literally an old school real-time strategist here, and I spend a lot of time flexing to every player that I bump into, whether they're new or old, that the best way to be an effective player is to know how to do everything. Know how to do logic, know how to be a good leader, know how to be a good communicator, know how to do battle, know how to fight, know how to
watch all the replays, right?
Just pretty much watch and pay attention, study, watch those freaking videos, man. I mean, I'm going to start making them myself here pretty soon. I'm going to announce that. But ultimately, people need to be more effective by being more involved in the game. And that's what we're looking for always. And we have such a good community. Yeah, I'll say that. We have a great community of people that are involved. But there's a lot of spying. There's a lot of bad juju I saw this last war, and I switched sides this last 2 wars from Wardens, which I've been last like 900 hours I've played this game. Now I'm at 960 hours. This next war I'm going to probably push the 1K. I'm being colonial again this war because honestly, they lost again. I'm going to start joining the losing side. But I want to see progress. You know what I'm saying? I want to see progress on both sides in terms of just less trolling and less just. It's gotten really rough.
Slipping in regimental advertisement there into the call.
Oh,
hey,
me too.
Well, hey, no joke. We on our 24-hour radio, when it actually works, when our 24/7 radio, we do have space for regimental ads. If you want to submit a 60-second advertisement, just feel free to audio advertisement. Please send me something. I'll work with you to get that on the air, playing every couple hours. No joke. But
I might actually get with you on that.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Just talk to me later. It's go to the Regimental Ads channel for the instructions there. But Draccos, thank you so much for calling in. We'll have to move on. But if you ever want to, are you a shock jock by any chance? Because you sound like one. And,
no, I get it all the time. I get told that I sound like I should be on radio and all that stuff, just like you. If anything, just be glad that I'm an associate of the PressCorps. I'm part of your guys' over here on the right side here. I'm down here in the
Sound and Magic.
Stage artist, Sound and Magic. Yeah, I'm part of you guys, so I'm an associate. Just be noticed that I am here to you anytime you need me. So anytime you need to set a PM or you want to do a collaborative thing, anything volume-wise, just let me know. Thank you again for having me on. I appreciate you guys, and stay safe during this epidemic, okay? I love you all, and keep fighting.
You too, man. You too. Thank you so much, Draccos. Coming up. Oh, sorry, Spots. What you had for us?
I just got a real quick question. So there's this old map. I was checking through old community, like guides and stuff. There's this planned map called Isthmus Delta. What happened to it?
Oh, like the physical space?
Yeah, what happened to the map idea, like Isthmus Delta? Because that would have been actually a pretty interesting map.
That does sound interesting.
I don't know. Well, I'll leave that question for later because we do need to get on to our next question. But yeah, map conspiracies. Let's let that monasticize instead of addressing it head on and allow the community to run away with it. But anyway, Canadian Cowboy, welcome back. Canadian Cowboy of the RR Regiment. What does RR stand for again?
Rural Renegades.
There you go. That's right. Some of the best.
A couple days ago.
The best Reddit advertising I've ever seen. No, like all lowercase. No information on like how to get to a Discord or anything. Literally just a picture of rednecks with guns, which is enough to get people on the band, on the tractor, on the pull tractor. Anyway, Canadian, what'd you have for us?
Yeah.
I got a question. Why is this update really laggy? Like, I got a truck stuck in the middle of a road. There's nothing around. It was just stuck. I had to use the unstuck command.
It was the mud. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It was by Calhoun's Gate. I couldn't move the truck at all.
Yeah, so I think you filed like a bug report, right? I think I saw some mention of that. I don't know if it was yours or not.
It may have not been me, but
Okay, so please file a bug report specifically because we are looking for those kinds of issues right now. Something that that is happening with this update is we replaced the networking backend, and we tried to test as much as we can, but at the end of the day, until you deploy something like this at scale, you don't really find out the problem. So you're probably experiencing some of these problems, and we'd like to know more about it, because that definitely is something we care a lot about. So if you're experiencing unusual lag, please let us know. We'll take a close look at it.
Alright. Also, another question. When is the heavy MG coming in? Will that be in a later update, or when is that deal coming in?
I think you will see it in the next 1 to 2 updates. But yeah, we're
Yeah, I know because it's like Corona and shit. Can't really do much.
No. It's not, I don't think that's. I don't think. I think it's kind of independent of that. I think it's just something that I think we mentioned on the last Zero Dark that sometimes, or maybe it was a stream, but sometimes features get postponed because sometimes it is because we run out of time, but other times it's just because we feel like it would fit much better in to come along with a bunch of like other changes, or we find a new way to like use it. So, but it's still planned, and we hope to get it in the next couple of updates.
Alrighty. Now I'm going to throw another one at you here. Will there ever be such things as uniforms? Maybe even when the game's fully released, or is that just kind of either sitting on the back burner or not even an option?
No, I think we'll see them eventually. I don't. I can't picture a future where we just never do that.
The question, I think the big question is implementation, right? How does one access them? How do you get to them? How, is it based on level, rank, accomplishments? How do you measure that? Those are the big questions there, right?
Yeah, I think that, so one thing is that we always get asked about whether we're going to add more stats, like player stats, things like skins that players can earn, and things of that sort. And I think that all falls under the category of when we get to 1.0, that's something that we want to take a look at, because that's like right now we're trying to find the answers to all these like game design issues, like the ones that like Wolfie just posed, and it's not productive. Like it doesn't, even if it earns us more like player retention or something of that sort, it doesn't help us solve those other problems, right? And it's the wrong order of operations for us if we pursue those features before we solve these larger problems, right? So, anyways, I like uniforms. I hope they come at some point.
Yeah. All right, Canadian. Thank you so much.
Another question. All right. See ya.
All right. Have a good one. Always good to have you on.
Somewhere. Yeah. I would Gilded Page.
I would love to hear
advertising.
Yeah, I would love to hear what kind of crazy redneck Appalachian advertisement we can get from the RR in terms of music choices.
Just like I don't know.
Hey, we'll talk later.
We'll figure something out.
Yeah, figure something out. All right, have a good one, Canadian.
I will. See ya.
Oh man, the big thing about uniforms, the big danger for any developer, I would think they have to look at Team Fortress 2, because then your initial, because you have this like aesthetic and feeling and atmosphere you want to put forward, and then
it becomes a hat-based warfare simulator.
Yeah, and I understand that Team Fortress 2 is like an inherently extremely cartoonish thing where nothing makes sense, and that's fine. But yeah, it's tricky. It's a tricky thing, and we here at the PressCorps, full disclosure, do have access to press uniform that we give out based on accomplishments of reporting and stories and minimum requirements and whatnot. And sometimes they're not a benefit either. Sometimes they're a shoot me color. They're a shoot me uniform. And, we've noticed an increased rise in the number of war crimes when it comes to... It's true when it comes to those uniforms. So be careful what you wish for.
Increased number in artillery, precision, and sniper fire drawn upon that little doughboy helmet and the camera on the chest.
It's like a buff. It's kind of like a buff debuff situation. But regardless, moving on to our next caller here. Welcome back, as always, Terrento. Welcome back to Zero Dark PressCorps. Great to have you.
Hello, Geoffrey. It's nice to be back. Actually, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. You and your beautiful voice, actually.
It's likewise. What'd you have for us here, Terrento?
What do I have? So, what topics are we talking general? Are we talking about like just general topics about the last war, or
it's up to you. We always welcome stories. It doesn't even have to be a question. It can be stories about the previous 500+ day conflict, or if you got a question for us here. I know because we didn't have a dev stream today because I'm sure things have been very busy at the office. I don't know, but maybe there's some questions about the upcoming update you might have about prototyping or technology or what have you. But it's up to you. You dictate the course of action here.
yeah, now that you talk about it, since there was no dev stream, I actually wanted to ask something. Also, I'm just going to say out loud that my internet connection is kind of unstable. So if my voice starts to sound choppy or if something like that, I'm sorry. But from I have one question that I want to ask is that I read on the upcoming on the patch notes for the upcoming update that you guys are taking away Uprising, like the mechanic that if a faction tries to kick out someone, the other one, another town instantly flips. You know? Like there was a line there that you guys wrote. You guys wrote that Uprising would be removed, and so I just now I wonder if that situation happens. Like for example, if the colonials start bullying the wardens and try to kick them out completely out of the map, what is going to be the
Yeah, it's a good question. So this was a big concern when we removed the port bases. In fact, we tore our hair out trying to find a solution for this. And like uprisings was the solution for this corner case that we had hoped would never really happen. And in the history of the game, I think it might have happened like once or twice since that point. And but even then, it wasn't uprisings that resolved it. It's just within the couple of hours the war was finished. And what we found was that there's actually a pretty low chance of this happening because it's already very difficult to even try to get the victory condition. If we ever do find ourselves in this situation where one side is pretty much like, you know, they have like full on like dominance, and we sense that players are doing something that is like inappropriate towards the spirit of the game, because it's so rare, because like it will probably have to be some pretty unprecedented circumstances of that happening. We didn't want to keep a game mechanic in the game just for that super rare, super unprecedented situation that can be handled through other means, right? Such as reducing the victory points in the war, which is something we already do when we feel that the war needs to end for other factors or more like external factors. So we'd rather just do it the same way. But I don't expect that that's something that is going to come up very often. And if it does, then who knows? Maybe we'll have to bring something like that back, right? But I really hope not, because we really never liked that in the first place. There's, it's funny because there's a lot of things in the game that we actually don't like, but it's like a necessary like evil to make this weird contraption of a game actually work, and that was one of them. And we don't feel like it's needed anymore, so it's no longer there.
I understand your your side of the story. It's just that for now, in my opinion, for now it's fine because the game is still in development. It's still early, so a lot of things will be added, a lot of things will be changed. But it's just that it's not so much of a warning as much of an advice that developer intervention should happen like as little as possible. If there is one thing that I learned from the community at the official Discord is that people want natural things to go natural. They don't like interference. They don't like things feeling artificial. So while this solution might work for now, I just hope that in the future, before the game actually releases 1.0, you guys have already figured out a system that takes care of this type of situation, even if it's rare to occur. Having said that,
there's something I like. We were talking about this earlier today, and you know what's really what's really wild about Foxhole as a game is that we're experimenting with some stuff that's never been really done before, or rather has been tried before and failed. For example, I think the biggest one that everybody is aware of is how many other MMO games do you know of allow you to vote kick each other? How many other games do you know of allow you to friendly fire each other? There's
There
not
are a few.
a lot.
There are a few.
There are a few. There are a few, but there's a lot of areas there that that we still need to experiment with, where there's things just don't necessarily work, and there's things that we need to keep working on, developing. And I'm hopeful that by the time we get to the end of it, that we'll have found something that works. But with that being said, I don't think there's not a lot of reference to go off of. So
Yeah, and I think another thing that I want to get in there is we found that like it's every developer's dream actually to be able to like automate something or to like systemize it, because then you don't have to worry anymore, right? You systemize it, you turn it into like a game mechanic, and then like that's it, right? But the thing is, in the process of doing that, ironically, sometimes you make things less natural, right? Like if you were to have some sort of like artificial like comeback mechanic to resolve this corner case of like one side being like pushed out the world, then you're just back to something like port bases, right? And that's a question. That's a question for you. What is more natural, like a port base that can never be destroyed, or a 0.1% chance that the developer has to um, like intervene to resolve a corner case that's extremely rare? Like it's an honest question. Which one of those two feels would you be more comfortable with as natural? Like which one feels more natural to you?
I think that it's difficult to answer that question because one of the things that I think you all will agree with me is that Foxhole is a kind of a niche game. Like you said, you guys don't have a lot of good reference uh, to take and make a good game. You just have to go trial and error and alongside with the backlash of the community. But yeah, board bases, I can say that nobody liked them. But if there is one thing that I also want to say is that the mechanic of board bases actually remind me of another game that uses a similar mechanic. It's Planet Side 2. I don't know if you guys know that game, but it's like
Yep.
yeah, I don't know if you guys ever took reference from that game. I'm not going to delve much further because it's a God how much deep the rabbit hole is. But I think something like at least a few things you guys can take of an example as to how you will tackle this problem. That's my view anyway. But having said that, if it is not much of a problem, there's just another thing that I want to talk is that weapon balances. Like because what from the recent updates. Wait, sorry. From the recent updates, you guys basically just nerf the rifle and buff the SMG. Like I want to ask something. Do you guys balance the weapons according to its usage, or do you prefer like a more niche quote niche approach, like every weapon having its role while having a standard one? For example, the rifle, there should be a jack of all trades. What do you guys think about this?
I think we try our best to balance the weapons based on their feel. Like we don't want too much overlap. Okay, I guess it's probably easier to frame this as like what is the ideal outcome, right? What do we ultimately want? ultimately, I think we'd like to have thousands of different guns in the game. I think we'd love to have different.
Can you hold on? Say that again. Thousands of different firearms.
There might be an exaggeration there.
So
but
hundreds.
I want hundreds. Sure.
Jägergewehr 42
Okay,
better make
alright.
an entrance.
Hundreds of thousands.
I mean, realistically, personally, I don't even like the fact that both sides have the same guns, but that's just my own personal preference.
Aesthetically, sorry to keep cutting you off. Aesthetically or gameplay-wise?
Both.
Okay.
I feel that. I remember the very first time I loaded in, I was like, wait, why do we have MP40s? Isn't that like, wouldn't that fit the Wardens more? And then I sat there and I was like, well, they also have M1 carbines.
PlanetSide 2.
So I just see it since everyone like there's like what weapons would have been allies, what weapons would have been Axis, and it's like both sides have it. So for me, at least, it's somewhat balanced. I'm just like, sure.
PlanetSide 2 in me is shuddering at the thought of gun creep. But I'm sorry, completely sidetracked you there. If you could, finish your thought.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is when we balance these guns, we're not balancing them. What we're really interested in is making sure that each gun feels unique and special. That you're not just picking up another version of the rifle or another version of the SMG. Because when we get to the hundreds of weapons, that's when we want to start to feel like, well, this is a little bit like an SMG and a little bit like a rifle, and you want to get like that blended sense. But right now, they just need to be different. And I think that we've set on a good spot with it, with all guns except the shotgun, which has obviously been nerfed to the ground. I'm sorry about that.
I love the shotgun so much, but due to it just being nerfed to hell and back, no one ever makes them. And then, literally, only times I've ever used a shotgun in this game have been when I found a warden who I just managed to shoot in the back in time and take it, and I was like, oh yeah, shotgun. I would have died if I hadn't killed him, and I took it, and then I killed 3 more wardens, and then I was out of ammo, and I was like, well, shoot.
The only time the shotgun is useful is if an enemy tries to bayonet you, you shoot him at point blank range, and you can get him red, and he'll slow down. That's the only time the shotgun is useful.
It's literally a trench gun. It's become the trench gun because it's only useful in the trenches usually.
Yeah.
Spots, and then we'll go back to
SMGs are better than shotguns and trenches.
Okay, but I mean, if someone just like hops on in, you just bop them. It's just like America in World War I. It's like, hey, can you stop using shotguns?
I love how there's parallel voice argument and then chat argument happening about the shotgun right now, which means which means it's perfect. I mean, okay. Terrento, did we answer your question there? Kind of.
Yeah, but I just want to say, like, it's no wonder that people joke that the shotgun is a confetti gun, because how many times have you actually tried to use the shotgun correctly and it just failed on you? Like, I want to like the shotgun. The shotgun is my favorite weapon, not just in Foxhole, but every other game. I just like the mechanic of it. But I feel bad because when I take the shotgun, I know that I'm effectively being useless.
Unless the only times I truly feel I'm not being useless if I have a shotgun is in certain trench situations where like I can sit at the door of a bunker and I know there's gonna be wardens coming and they'll hop down and I can just immediately just bop one of them, slam fire into another one, and then usually I can just grab their rifle and keep fighting.
Yeah. All right. Well, we could keep going on about this, and it'd be entertaining to keep going on about this. But Terrento, did you have anything else for us here?
Yes, I wanted just one last thing before I go. I want to answer Mark's question. I don't know if it actually was Mark or Crazy.
Sure.
But it was a question like, what do we want when we want to take a gun? In my personal opinion, in my utopia of the perfect game, when I go to choose a gun, I want to choose a gun knowing its ups, knowing its downs, and that if I use it correctly, I can dominate. Like, if I take the shotgun, I know that I have to be close range. If I take the SMG, I know that I have to do suppression. That kind of stuff. So yeah, I just want every weapon to at least not be an active nerf to your team, an active waste of BMATs. That's just my 2 cents on it anyway.
Work in progress, but you bring up a lot of good points. Terrento, thank you so much, as always, for calling in. Loyal listener, loyal caller in the show, as so many others are. Thank you so much.
I got a quick war story.
Yeah, actually, I know Spot said something, Johansson had something, and actually that's perfect because I gotta actually have to set up a few things here. But go ahead.
So I have a funny story during this war. This was when the colonials. This was when I think it was when Margaret Howell was still an active front before we got pushed back heavily. So we were attacking the enemy's large bunker base they made. So I managed to rush up into the bunker base with a satchel. I made into a part of the bunker base, which was arguably a mistake by them. I made into the part where I was safe from the rifle garrison's fire, but I could still plant a satchel. And there was 2 wardens right next to me, basically right next to me, when I was planting the satchel, and the warden actually walked up to me while I was planting the satchel, and walked back. And I managed to plant the satchel and run away and did some damage to the bunker base.
That's ballsy.
I feel like you told the story before. Didn't he also say, like, hey, why is there a colonial over here, but then just, like, not do anything?
It happens a lot. Sounds like it.
Because I
Sounds
heard
like there needs to be
someone
shotguns.
said they walked up with a satchel, and the 2 wardens were there, and they was like, why is there a colonial over here? Let him plant the satchel. And he started running, and then they started shooting.
yeah, that was me.
All right. Well, actually, I think Johansson did something, and then I gotta let me keep fixing something.
Basically, what I want to do, I want to commend you both. I just want to commend the entire dev team for doing an excellent job of the game. And I'm also quite happy about you fixed the double drop bug, so you could delete items. I'm quite happy that you fixed that as well. I basically want to commend you. I'm gonna give you both my 3 daily commends as I can give. And that's pretty much it.
Do we get daily commends?
3.
No. What I mean, you can only give a person 3 commends a day. That's what I mean.
What he's saying is he's only gonna give us 3 commends.
Because that's the only thing I can give. That's the maximum I can give. If I could give more, we give more, but I can't.
Thanks, man.
All right. Well, okay. There you go. Okay, gentlemen from the ISO, welcome back. Last call is great, and I'm sure this one will be too. Remind me once again, what does ISO stand for?
This time I'll say because Clover messed it up last time. Pretty much the long version is Imperial Special Operators of Callahan, but for short it's Imperial Special Operators.
Sure. Okay. Well, gentlemen, what'd you have for us here?
So we had a really cool story. Basically, we put our base in Blackthroat with the 503rd, and we kind of built up that crazy lower part of Viper where Blackthroat and Freres were. And just when the Warden thought we were going to take Lockmore and Marbin, and then we pushed back, we must have unloaded with our storm cannon at least 300 shells to take back Sanctum.
The storm cannon?
Yeah, we had a storm cannon in Blackthroat, and we... I hate HE mats after this experience, but we shelled it, and it took 4 or 5 days, and we finally got in there, and then, my guys with a bunch of other clans from awarded military were able to push in, and, I mean, it was one of the best days I've ever had in the game, because it shows how much teamwork you could get when clans work together, even randos work together, and we could take back an area tactically, because it took 4 to 5 days to shell that area. And then finally, when Sanctum was able to survive a night in-game, we were actually able to push in with a lot of forces and take back Sanctum, Spirit Rocks, Maiden's Veil, Mox, and then a few days later, we ended up getting most of it, except for Lockheed.
I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about. Because I was there during the colonial advances on Sanctum, and I came back a little while later, and I thought they'd never made it, and I was talking to someone, they're like, no, we took it. And I was like, you took it? And I was like, then why are you back here? They said, we got shelled pretty heavily, and then 82 DK thrown us out.
Yeah.
And we were pushed back just south of Sanctum, right where that, Warden Maginot was.
Yeah, we pretty much made, I think, about 80 shells every day for 4 to 5 days straight, and just kept bombing the hell out of that place.
It's like 11 p.m., 30 shells. All right, 12 p.m., 30 shells.
Yeah, it was kind of increments. I mean, I appreciate the Storm Cannon more now after actually having it in an offensive position where it actually did some damage and aided in the push in Marbin while on the other side we were pushing into Lockmore. So, it was definitely a successful piece of equipment in the advance.
Which is funny because the Storm Cannon, I believe its stated purpose was to be a defensive structure. Is that correct, developers?
Yes.
Well, I think I might have rewrote the pages in your book about how that weapon's used.
I don't think it's just you.
It definitely wasn't used effectively.
I have a feeling there'll be a nerf soon because of what you said. I have a feeling.
Oh, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you look in some regions, the Colonials were, I think in Deadlands had 3, had 2 in another region, and I mean, it took a lot of work to take those out. But I mean, the cannons are great defensively, but I think if you place them in the right area tactically, they could literally help push to take over an area from an offensive standpoint.
And no, yeah, what happened to 80 sunken pillboxes? They just disappeared.
Because magic!
Gone!
Harry Potter!
Like they never ever existed.
Yeah, we were actually live feeding when we stormed cannon, so we actually saw a bunch of CVs get destroyed, tons of defenses, 2 bunker bases multiple times, the relic base, and somehow we took out a BT and a light tank that was parked there. I don't know how, but yeah.
All right, gentlemen, did you have anything else for us? That sounds like a harrowing story. And how many people in the ISO to get you that many storm cannon shells?
Well, the base of operations we have is a joint base. So we the last couple of wars we've been working with the 503rd, and they've been really great at pretty much we build up the base. We do a lot of the base operations. They pretty much help us with resources that we need to keep the base going. I mean, we both dished out a lot of shells. It took a lot of time, a lot of work. HE mats were not easy to get. I'm just going to say that right now.
I don't think they're supposed to be, but regardless, that sounds awesome. And gentlemen, did you have anything else for us here?
I guess about concrete.
Sure.
I can understand why it's heavy and you want to do that, but I feel like there should be some mechanic to streamline it a bit.
Wheelbarrow?
Not have stacks or wheelbarrow, or actually give the concrete mixer like wheels actually, so you can push like an FMG or somewhere you want to build, and you just take all the stacks.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, because it's kind of hard to take a truck with 15 pieces because you can't really stack concrete. So
which I think is the purpose, right?
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm okay with that. I mean, we were lucky that our base was very modular and small, that we were able to do all our concrete work in one space. But if the concrete mixer was able to be moved, we could have concreted more of the defense line we set up in other areas. So, I think that's something that might be plausibly a positive, like for future updates, if possible. I don't know if you guys could do it, but maybe it'll make it a little less stressful.
So, question. When you were building your base with concrete, did you refine your concrete at like a safe base, or did you refine your concrete at the location?
So it depends on the base. This base happened to be right behind Blackthroat, and we had such a massive amount of defenses. And the way the tech tree was operating with tech moving a little quicker, it felt like, we put the mixer right in the base. Because the way the defensive structure was set up, we were pretty much protected 360. So in this one specific war, it was easier for us to put the mixer in the base and do everything there and just bring the comp there, cook it, and then we would just upgrade it as it cooked. So we did walls first, and then me and Covert in about 2 or 3 hours did the base completely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we got a good path down. This is where we want to move the concrete all the way to like a new location. It's like, oof, just might as well leave it.
Because it's not like you could pack the mixer automatically. Like, you could pack an FA and it has ammo in it. I can't pack a mixer if it has like 1,000 concrete in it. And if I don't need to use the concrete there, but in another location, obviously perhaps making it more mobile would probably help out a little.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for calling in the Imperial Special Operators, Sea Skeleton and Death Dealers. Good luck to you out there. You are a Warden group, did I?
Yes.
Yep. Imperial.
We're Warden loyalists. Yeah, we're a Warden loyalist.
Nothing wrong with loyalists.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started, I almost tried Kali just because I kind of liked the vehicles, but then, I watched a lot more Warden videos and I got impressed with kind of the unity and the tactics they utilize. So I mean,
Same
thank you.
traitor.
Yeah. Hey, look here.
How is he supposed to say
There's
he's
nothing
never been
wrong. There is
Need
nothing
to
wrong with
say
me bombing
neutral.
your bases. Okay. There is absolutely nothing wrong with me shooting 300 shells at the base you took from us. Okay. No problem.
And there's nothing wrong with stealing Warden fuel trucks from their main logistics hubs.
Yeah, I know.
What's up,
I still got love for you guys.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Hope to see you next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. Have a good one.
All right, so this next one is actually going to be a big one because it's the Warden Navy as usual, and they always bring the posse, which is great. I encourage that. So I may have to ask the other members of the press to quickly move to lounge or another studio just for a hot moment.
Boys are back in town. Boys
Yeah.
are back in town.
Oh, actually, hold on. Am I? No. Actually, we do have a couple more people. I'm sorry. I always read this cue call wrong. So we actually have a text question from Patchouli, and I will read this. Just of course, fully aware that that person there will be able to follow up questions, and I may tell this question wrong. But to the devs, the current partisan meta, carrying several crates of ammo in cheap vehicles to do max damage at low cost, cannot be countered by any form of building or protection, short of a big, expensive, multi-layered base around each partisan target. Even concrete walls only last a day before satchels are researched. Are there any plans to give Logi some form of counter? Active defense that doesn't die to guns like the old gun nest? Unstackable ammo maybe? What are the options there?
Sounds like a PvEer.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that if you ask different players, some players feel that we've nerfed the partisan game too much over the last year, because I think outside of like unintentional side effects, I think most of the intentional changes around partisans have been generally in the nerf direction. But other players would, I've definitely heard a lot that partisans are still too powerful, right? So I think that like balancing that is an ongoing process. But there's always two. I think the point I'm trying to make is that for that particular issue, there's always two sides of the argument, right? But I think that like if there is maybe something to take a look at is just and again, it doesn't mean that there's going to be changes, but we want to re-examine like how much it like doing Logi is a lot of effort. Doing partisan work is a lot of effort. We want to see if the effort there is balanced in the way that we want it to be, but it's one of those. It's just tough because we definitely hear both sides of the argument. I don't know, Max, if you have any other thoughts on that.
No, I think you. Somebody quoted you earlier. Actually, I thought it was really. Is that when you fix the game for one player, you're breaking it for another. And I think this is one of those prime examples of that. There are some people who really enjoy partisan. We want partisan warfare to be a part of this game, a big part of this game, because logistics is huge in Foxhole. So when we start pushing into partisan stuff, we break the game for Logi players. When we push into Logi gameplay, we break the game for partisans, and it's really just trying to find a nice balance of both.
And I think there is credence, however, to the question that maybe things really are leaning too much on the partisan direction, just inherently by the nature of each roles independently, because again, speaking very generally, but it's usually easier to destroy something than to create something. It's usually a little more mentally taxing to create as opposed to just quickly destroying something, right? Easier to wash the dishes than to have to really focus on making a recipe. And I could go on with all sorts of metaphors. And just the fact that to be a raider, to be a commando, you need to just take a rifle, some magazines, and just find an open line on the map. Open small, just small little gap, right? Weakest link, chain link fence only as strong as your weakest link, right? Find that spot, exploit it, and if you're doing well, you're kind of reinforced by finding more ammunition, finding more supplies, kind of self-sustaining in a way, as opposed to someone who has to, go back to the warehouse, pull out another truck. If there's none in the warehouse, then you gotta grab the basic materials to make a new one, and that's already like 10 minutes of your time, and it's a very very taxing thing to start from scratch, which is something else I know we've talked about here on the show, and in general. So I think there's credence to that. I don't know. Any closing thoughts on that while we move on to KronusWinter?
No, I think we agree completely. I think definitely we need to keep an eye on it because very usually this part of the game gets touched by. We add something new. We've learned this. You add something new, like, oh hey, here's a new tank, and then all anybody sees is like, well, yeah, but here's the 10 more steps for logic we have to do, and then it looks like, and so it's like it's not intentional that we end up making things harder. So it's constantly in flux. Sometimes partisans have the advantage, and sometimes logic has the advantage. And hopefully, this is one of those cases where it's not too bad out of whack, but we got to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, but you can't make everybody happy. That's the thing. You can't make every single person happy. There's always some people that won't be happy.
Yeah, exactly. And and it's another tricky thing because it's not like a partisan work is something you can just change the number on, right? Oh, hey, let's buff partisans. All right, just change this number here. No, that's like 5 different mechanics. That's gonna mess everything up. So anyway, moving on. Speaking of very detailed discussions on mechanics and whatnot, I love his streams. I love watching him work. Kronus, welcome back to Zero Dark PressCorps. How are you doing tonight?
Oh no, this guy.
KFC, Mark. If I can't.
God of logic.
Hi guys.
Hey.
How are you guys doing tonight?
Pretty good.
Great. I'm honestly not 100% sure why I'm here. I just decided this is the first that I've played in a while, and I decided, I'll just go back to these. I took a long break due to life, and but now I'm back, and I'm going to just start doing Logi again, like always, and then sending the books of stuff of ideas that I have to KFC and Mark until they finally get sick of me. But so earlier you were talking to Wolfie, and that actually brought up a topic that I'm really interested in, and this also kind of loops in with partisans, is that the fronts always feel the same regardless of the maps that we're on, because players are always grinding for the exact same town or the exact same location because it holds some strategic value. Example, colonials and deadlands will go for the pits because the pits is how you get to boot, and once you get to boot you can flank around and you can cut off abandoned ward, and then you can finally take ward. That's changed with the new map, obviously. Maybe that'll change the meta. But part of Foxhole that confuses me is there's not a lot of player mobility. Like, if I'm in a Logi zone, let's say Heartlands, and I'm in Blemish and I'm doing Logi. Let's say a partisan enters in and they're in that town to the bottom right. That name's entirely escapes me right now, but that's really annoying. I have to find a vehicle, which in Blemish it's not hard, get down there, hopefully kill them or disable their vehicle so that they can't move as much. But if they kill me, I have to wait maybe, let's say, 30 seconds for a respawn. Then I have to grab my gear. Let's add another 30 seconds. Then I have to run around, hopefully find a truck or a vehicle that is fast enough to catch them, and it just makes it chaotic. And on front lines, you have this problem where people filter down one road, and they fight on this one road, and they just keep that going, mostly because player mobility is really hard. So what if there was a mechanic that allowed players to redeploy to any occupied town, not fob, town, that has shirts, and if you are in a town in like Blemish and somebody's in Deep Law, you could redeploy there. That way, it's kind of a counter buff to partisans, but somebody doesn't like that. But but for this mechanic to work, I was thinking, what if there was a repurposing of the frontier base into a partisan base that could be built by hand and allow partisans to respawn? And now people are going to freak out about that because that used to be a thing. I see in your chat somebody says redeployment used to be a thing. Was that a thing? When was that? I do logic.
Redeployment when? Like the backline redeployment for partisans?
Well, no, like let's say I'm in Blemish and I want to go to Deeplaw and I need to pick up a vehicle. I can just burn a shirt, go from redeploy. I go to the Blemish Town Hall. I would select something that just lets me deploy to Deeplaw.
So to clarify, you mean like redeploy without going back through the home region?
Yes, it's within region only.
Oh, I see.
Because this is just my personal opinion, and I know I've only played Logi for 1,300 hours in Foxhole. I don't know what combat's like at all. But some things that always confuse me is like we'll be pushing one road and one road only, and then nobody's building a flanking base. Nobody's going around to do anything over here, and all of a sudden, if the other team is wise enough to start attacking a town that has no players, if it has no AI defenses, then it's just now you have to somehow get there, get the garrison going, so people can deploy there.
So it's I think I know what you're touching on, and I think here's the tough thing, right? Like if someone I like that because it more accurately simulates what would happen in a real war. You're kind of simulating the fact that there are stationed soldiers over there, right?
Right. Because your shirts are your limiting factor.
Yes, and that's one of the reasons why when we did the deployment point system last fall, that was sort of one of the things we were trying to simulate. Like if there's a town in the middle of nowhere, but the enemy comes, as long as you have supplies there, in theory, it's like, okay, you have like a garrison there. You can sort of like become one of the soldiers there, and then now you can try to block the defense, right? It's just having supplies there as a limiting factor is a bit tough because you sort of indirectly nerf other things in the game, like a beach landing as an example. Like if you can suddenly magically teleport a whole bunch of people over instantly, that's also gonna counterbalance in a that's the other side of the equation. You're making it like, are you making it too hard to like attack or too hard to flank? Is the question, right?
Right. But part of that problem, in my opinion, is the fact that the way people build defenses in Foxhole is not a rhyme or reason. It's, I need to build a foxhole that covers this foxhole that protects this pillbox so that at night, when somebody comes with a rifle, they don't kill this foxhole. But then if they come with a machine gun, they will. And if they have smoke grenades, it's a whole other story. And maybe a possible, like, I would prefer less AI in the game. That's my opinion. And the problem with that is that the damage output of a single player is so high that it's kind of ridiculous. But then how do you also make it so that a foxhole is not completely like out of one individual soldier's way of destroying it? It's just I as a Logi player, I dislike how much damage a very well coordinated partisan team could do, because it's really hard to counter them, especially if they're in LUVs and you don't have one. An RMAT costing item that it's cheap, but if you're somewhere in like Endless Shore with no refinery, and all of a sudden they're running around and you got to catch up to them, you better hope you have a bike or they stay near the roads.
Here's a question for you, Kronus. Have you ever, in your hundreds of hours of trucking and waterway logistics as well, have you ever had an armed escort prior to being raided? So this is just a preemptive, hey, I logged on, I'm transporting stuff, and hey, you know what, let's get an armored car in here. Have you ever had that before?
Oh, absolutely. When a couple of wars ago, I was working at a blemish doing Logi, and I woke up to find that we owned Weathering Halls, and I was like, I am not driving to Weathering Halls to bring resources now that I have a refinery and a factory up there. I gathered 23 flatbeds, 3 armored cars, a fuel truck. I was in an LUV, and I packed all my stuff up into a couple of containers, well, 23 containers, and we just went on the way up there. And because we had so many trucks, I said, I'm not going without armored car escort, and we brought armored cars. But I mean, overall in Foxhole, that's a very rare situation because you don't have the time to do that on active fronts most of the time. If you don't have a complete overstock of supplies, you're filling containers, and you're like, who wants to drive this back and forth to this depot? And it's like, sure, you got 30 minutes of your life to do this.
And how much of, again, this is we're delving into your mind, into your play style,
Right.
which is
My opinion.
which you have admitted is a very unique play style where you'll play for 6 hours and collect thousands of materials and whatnot. And hey, kudos to you. I could never. Whenever you do have those escorts, have they worked?
Yes, they have. Because most times, it depends also where you are on the tech tree, right? If you are in a part of the tech tree where you have armored cars, but APCs are available, you're going to have a little bit issue if an APC shows up, because you're going to have to put out a lot of damage or just kill the drivers at least. I've never really experienced armored car versus APCs, but APCs, as far as I know, are like the best of the best when it comes to cost effectiveness. It's what, 20, 25 RMATs, and you can throw a bunch of people in the back with machine guns. You can do the prone glitch, the RPG glitch, or whatever. Used to turn them into aircraft carriers. That was hilarious. They fixed that, and I'm mad. But overall, like, if you're ever going for an escort, it's usually you want APCs or armored cars, but you never go anything too big.
Right.
And Foxhole just isn't the game for convoys. I love them. Like, I grabbed, I was in Wellchurch this war. I had 100,000 BMATs I didn't know what to do with, so I just decided to drop them off in Blemish. 20 flatbeds. We all went to Blemish, took the long route, didn't need an escort because we stuck to watchtowers.
Okay,
but then just teleport.
That's an extremely interesting statement you just said there, and so I guess I'll ask the devs. What do you respond to that? Which is, he said that Cronus said that oh my goodness, he said that Foxhole is not a game about convoys, or it is not a game for convoys. Do you agree with that sentiment? Not invalidating what you said, Cronus, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we love the idea of convoys, and we've made several, I guess, like, not, we made several attempts, I would say, like, not actually trying that hard, but several, like, casual attempts at like, hopefully trying to make that happen. But, I do think it doesn't happen on average, but it's something that we would like. I think that idea really, like, excites us, right? It's I mean, Foxhole is a game about Logi, so why wouldn't we be excited about that? But this just really hasn't happened as much as we'd like, and yeah.
Yeah, and Cronus, why do you think? And I think you kind of answered this before. Why do you think Foxhole is not the game for convoys?
It really depends on the war, the front, and where your Logi hub is. As I've said before, there's this thing called, like, the theoretical max output of a factory, where if you could theoretically keep this factory running 24/7, that is your maximum output per single item. So shirts are an example that I use because the average for the shirt production per factory is about 400 an hour. So if you have a front line that's going 450 shirts an hour, if you do not have a stockpile of shirts, you need a second factory, or that front's going to start burning shirts, and you need to tell them, play more defensively, stop dying, here's more medic equipment. So in Foxhole, you have this problem where you need to convince someone to drive 15 minutes back and forth to certain fronts. It's not always that far, but, getting the flatbed together, getting the container together, getting it all organized and ready for someone can be quite the mess. With the new squad story system, it's actually made it a lot worse because I see a depot and I go, I don't see any shirts. And then I talk to somebody in one CMD and they're like, yeah, we got 100 crates there. And it's like, oh, I don't need to worry about that. Because time is a valuable resource when you're playing Foxhole. And it's like, this person has an hour to play. If I ask them to do 2 trips, that's literally the entirety of the game they're going to play. It's a weird resource and it's a hard balancing act. Like, to get convoys going, the first thing I have to do is I have to find a way to convince people to give me all the flatbeds that I need. So if I need 20 flatbeds and I've got 5, I need to convince people, listen, I'm doing something really cool. I need 15 more flatbeds. I just need them over here. And then I have to take the time to organize the containers, get them colored, figure out where they're going, get them filled. And then when I finally have all of that done, I can go, hey, let's go on a convoy. People show up, they have fun, they won't make the return trip, so there's 20 flatbeds stuck in limbo. But they have fun with it, but you can't do that on an average front because crates are so small that, you bring 5 radios per crate, and they need radios to make sure they don't get partisaned, or they need binoculars because everybody's taking them, but now the mortar teams don't have them. So then it's just like I need a constant rotation of certain supplies in and out to keep the front, well stocked. But then somebody takes 500 Howie shells, puts them in a single fob, and then I cry myself to sleep, or we have to pull them all out and move them somewhere else. Or, they get flopped to the warden side, and then I really die inside, which has happened twice in my entire time of playing Foxhole, and I don't know how to say that it's killed me more than anything else.
Yeah, hey, Mark, crazy. What are you going to do to make sure Kronus doesn't sleep to, cry himself to sleep every night? Which is not a leading question.
Well, no, I've told Kronus this already. I've told Kronus this already. I wish you would take a longer break. I know you said
a longer break.
I know you said that you were that you came back and that you had things going on in your life, and now you're back. But I know this game is going to be great, and I know you're going to love what it becomes. But I feel like it's not there yet for you, and I don't want to see you get burned out on what it is today. I want to see you get burned out on what it's going to be later. So don't cry yourself to sleep over this game.
Wait, don't you want to have them get burned out on what it is later? Or is it the point?
No. See, what has to happen here is that everybody on the Colonial side is eventually going to have the WLL tag, and everybody's going to do so much logi that we're literally just going to drown the wardens in BMATs, and they just won't even be able to fight, and this will become an entire... It won't even be a war game anymore. It'll just be like, how do we get rid of these BMATs? We can't get rid of them.
It'll be Foxhole, the Maginot Defense, because the entire Central Legion just becomes this giant wall of just pure bunkers and storm cannon. It's the Maginot, but on steroids. And how do we attack this? You don't.
Here's something fun though that I would really like that would actually help prevent this, because when things happen, people accuse people. When people see somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, or somebody who is a low rank, I hate to say this, but a lot of people will suddenly go out and they'll say, that's an alt, or that's a griefer. And that could be true. But one way that I have, that I would love to see about bases, and even storage depots, and town halls, and just about everything, is that if you blow up a base, because you blew it up. You literally shelled this thing into the ground, you threw explosives on it, you shot it to death, it is rubble, and now you have to rebuild it. You get half of the material inside? I hate that. Get rid of everything. You get nothing. You get a big old concrete building, you get a depot with nice empty halls, because you literally caved in on it. Just get rid of all the material inside. And it makes Logi feel more important, because Logi will be like, well, now I got to restock that from the winning side and get stuff there, instead of just opening it up and saying, well, I don't have anything to do today because that is already stocked because the other team didn't empty it.
And then there's also less toxicity on the other side of you guys just gifted them 300,000 BMATs and all this oil and yada yada yada, and then people are getting muted in Sigil.
So no war loot is kind of a terrible thing to say, but I think from a perspective of how the current system works, it would feel better that way for everyone. If, all right, depots get blown up, oh well, nothing's inside. And if people are saying more work for Logi, what the fuck? Okay, increase how many resources we get, or decrease how long it takes us to make stuff. And I would actually just say give us more resources. If we're going to go the route of destroy everything in a depot, destroy everything in a fob, because more resources allows more people to do their thing. Then you're going to get, the people like me, or I had one guy this war named Wubby. He harvested, and I counted because he did this every day because he can't work due to, I think, the coronavirus. So he's been playing this game a lot. He made a minimum of 600,000 BMATs this war by himself, packed them up into a container, and had them shipped.
Kudos to him.
Anywho's.
Kronus,
please blow things up. I know I could go on forever, and you need to get rid of me so you can go on to the next person.
I was gonna say twitch.tv/KronusWinter. Literally every time you broadcast Kronus, it is these discussions, and you can interact with them, ask direct questions, and you'll never get enough of Kronus because your mind is an incredible thing to just watch and listen to keep
just
using.
Use it by its medically confirmed term. I'm insane. I know, it's okay. I'm fine with that.
I feel
I'm not mentally sound after playing this game.
Oh boy,
I love this game too much.
Hey Kronus, thank you so much for stopping by. I hope we see you again soon.
Yep, I can go on for days. So kick me out before I stay and ramble and
Twitch.tv/KronusWinter. Twitch.tv. And so many other great members. So many other members of the Foxhole community that I would love to sit down and shout out one of these days. Okay, so this next call is going to be the Warden Navy. So, I'm sorry, what?
Oh, I was going to say, me and Mark going to get going. We're already 20 minutes over.
Oh, you're going to... Okay. We're going to call it now?
But I will stick around for one more with it, since it is Warden.
All right.
Yeah, I'll stick around for one more. There is one thing I want to correct because I would just hate myself if I didn't. I said earlier on the stream that there's only one person that's ever left the company. That's not true.
What? You're now?
Jerry.
I'm here. Sorry, I was studying for my AP exam.
Sorry, Mark, finish your statement.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to correct that statement because I would feel bad if someone heard it. And
what was the statement? I'm sorry. What was it?
There's been more than one person that has ever left the studio. I believe there's been two, and I hope that I didn't get two wrong. But I think it's two.
That's fine.
I just wanted to correct that.
It's not my fault. I know that Markfoot's a little quiet.
All right. We got esteemed members of the Warden Navy joining us tonight. Gentlemen, what'd you have for us?
I think Mint would like to speak first.
Wait, what? Oh yeah, let me get my notes up. Oh yeah. The war before the war that just ended.
Mm-hmm.
You know the invasion the Colonials did on Stone Cradle?
Mm-hmm.
I had reports you guys were there for that.
The developers?
KFC, were you guys there for that invasion?
Yeah, the landing on Stone Cradle? The Colonial landing on Stone Cradle.
Well,
we were there for that.
We were there in the sense that we were watching it.
Alright, now the main question was, were you there for the Tempest invasion on the East Coast?
I was.
You were.
Yeah. Again, in a capacity of I was watching it, not playing it.
Which one do you think was more executed better? I don't know. I can't word.
That depends on your definition of executed, because
which invasion?
If you're talking about the sheer organization required, the Colonial one definitely took way more interclan coordination and way more planning and preparation. But the Tempest one was way better executed. It took fewer people, and they were far more efficient with what they brought, and they were sustaining their attack over a longer period of time, taking towns and holding them. So they were both really good, but definitely the one on Tempest was the only one that stuck.
I got another question as well. The Warden Victory Parade, were you guys watching that?
No, unfortunately not. That happened after our...
No, I think one of the videos got posted today on our Discord, and I maybe watched a little bit of it, but didn't.
All right, VonKlaus, you're up.
To that, was there an event this war
that like caught your eye or that you were interested in?
Was it to the devs?
Yes.
Not to the same extent as those landings.
Really?
We were impressed by the incredible colonial bunker base in Deadlands that held out for 12 hours after Deadlands. It was east of Liberation Point. That was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, that one.
Oh, yeah.
Down.
Yeah.
I can tell you. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that this is like a smaller thing, but I know that the near the end of the war, in Umbra, Wildwood, and the Great March, they didn't fall as fast as I thought they would. I thought the war was over more or less after the blemish was taken, but they were pretty long like holdouts in both those regions, which was kind of not something that you see in most wars. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah. A lot of the old fortifications the Collies had, remaining Collies there, held on quite hard, a lot harder than we expected for sure.
Yeah, and moving just the logistics down after that, moving everybody's stuff down, our stuff down to Blemish. I mean, we had a tremendous amount of public stuff that we got when we took Blemish, but a lot of that we used immediately, and that's how we got the quick resets on a lot of the neighboring maps through that.
Especially Great March.
Yeah. All right. Should there have been something that we should have noticed in terms of operations and bombastic movements?
Well, I would, something I would like to know from some of the other colonials that I hope you guys asked is what they thought some of the big turning point battles were. I know definitely that battle at Machas that took all day. That was a pretty big turning point battle. I think then maybe the next day, I know one had a really big breakthrough at Prairie Bazaar, which then led us, or Navy, to be able to attack Lockmore immediately in succession and be able to reset like Tomb of the First, Mercy's Wish, and West March like almost simultaneously. And then that led to the next day where DK attacked. So it was kind of like a piling on after that battle they lost at Machas, really that turned the tide, I feel. I mean, so I'd like to know, like, maybe from the Colonials' perspective, what it was, because they really had the upper hand for most of the war. I mean, I don't know if from your guys' perspective, because you have a different view of it, but you're not necessarily watching every detail of the war.
Yeah, this was a big one. I don't know if any of our colonial correspondents want to answer that question.
But I wasn't there during the turning point, but one of the major battles that kind of turned the war into the colonial favor was the battle around Fort Diamond. It was
in what region? In what region was that?
That was in Lynn of Mercy.
Mm-hmm.
Not Lynn. I think Lockmore.
All right.
It was pushing towards Tomb of the First, and I think Tomb of the First is in Lockmore. Get those two pretty confused because they're kind of similar to each other.
Oh, so it was maybe south of Tomb of the First?
Yeah, it's south of Tomb of the First.
Yeah, I remember that bunker was. Even when we took it out the first night when we did those resets, we didn't get that. So the next day when then DK came through or whatever, that was kind of the big holdout. I remember. Okay, so that's good. That's interesting. So that's some interesting insight. So that was really what kind of was holding us up the one night, and so it's good to know that that was kind of like maybe where the supplies were or whatever. Then that's what kind of broke the front there.
Yeah, after basically, long story short of what happened was that Fort Diamond was holding like really well until we surgically tactically like how one person describes bunkers. You must be it's like brain surgery. You must know what parts you need to attack. After we managed to knock out the southern part, managed to knock out the howitzer garrison they had on it, and managed to push right into the south of it, that bunker just fell quickly, and the rest of the region fell after it. That was like the last major holdout for you guys.
Yeah, that's what earlier I was describing it like brain surgery. If you know how to pick a bunker base apart correctly, it is pretty easy.
Yeah, and we had a big op at Foundry this war. Mint was the leader, and he came up with a great plan. But I was leading the FA, and it's really, really tricky. Like, especially anybody that's did an FA fighting against bunkers that have howitzer bunkers know that it's a very tricky thing. You know, it's very easy to lose your FA. So you have to know exactly which bunkers to hit, you know, how to hit them, and the FA is so delicate, you don't want to lose the FA. I think we went through 80 FAHC shells going through clearing that place. So it was quite a bit. Big props to, I think, Worcester Boehner, and I think Rustchart Gaming, I saw had built some of those bunkers there, so they know a thing or two about keeping people out. So that was a pretty tough one to get through. Mint might have a little more insight on that.
No, I was going to talk a little bit about the artillery, because we're already discussing that. I think the artillery should be changed a little to encourage artillery batteries. What do you guys think, as developers?
Sorry, repeat the question.
I think artillery should be changed to encourage players to use the artillery in battery formations, such as using maybe 4 to 6 artillery pieces in one line. What do you guys think?
Like real line?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, honestly, I think we could be, at the very least, there can be more variety in the way that the artillery works in the game. I think something that I would personally like to see is a form of artillery that is even more inaccurate than the current one, and but they're meant to be more like you be able to sort of like pelt like an like entire town with it. Something of that sort would be kind of at a high level. But you know, this is all just me kind of like brainstorming, not serious features.
Yeah.
My question is, in what ways do you think the current fire support options are discouraged from currently forming large batteries of howitzers and
Is that
artillery?
a question for me or
Yeah, that's a question for you. How do you think they're discouraged?
Because a single gun can carry enough firepower to shell an entire town, which is very unrealistic, because transporting the shells, such as in wars like World War I and II, was, I believe, the biggest issue of artillery, in that they couldn't transport enough shells to pack enough punch, and they needed to use artillery in certain battles. So what I'm thinking, potentially, you could have FAs carry 2 shells in them. One in the breech, one in the inventory. And you have to manually load the shells from the trucks into the guns. That'll encourage the use of multiple guns. What do you guys think?
Sorry, KFC. Can you repeat that question again? I'm really sorry.
Okay. So to encourage the use of multiple guns, I believe you should have the FAs only able to carry 2 shells in them. One in the breech, one in the inventory, and then make the players have to manually load the shells.
Yes.
Then you should
I think that would work.
You should have shell piles if you have stationary artillery guns also. That way you can stock a pile up with shells and then pull from the pile next to it.
And it would help with immersions. I mean, immersion.
Maybe if you lower the cost just like slightly, I think that would be very practical, because a lot of times you want to split up the shells between 3 guns so you can kill something faster. But then it'd be more like something you'd have to set up maybe a little more, even though the guns are mobile.
Yeah, this is coming from a clan that does artillery like all war.
Real quick,
what's funny
I
is
ask a question for War and Navy. War and Navy, in what way do you want to see? Because I know you like naval stuff. In your opinion, what do you think? Because we all know the current naval meta is pretty broken due to APCs. Yes. What do you think is any way to fix? What's the best way to fix the current naval meta?
Make APCs a little more susceptible to front gunboat fire.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be a big, easy fix. Because currently it's like...
See, the APCs on land, they're balanced, but on water, it's just the front gun can't touch them. Maybe increase the AP value of the front gun of the gunboats enough to harm APCs. Because currently, gunboats take like maybe 20-30 mags to kill an APC. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, the other day, from like a recent experience, our front gunner, he was shooting this enemy APC, and it took about 8 mags, or I can't even remember how many mags to even get it disabled. And we had 2 more come from us, and the only way we can get rid of those fast enough was with the artillery gun, just moving with them in a parallel formation to take them out with the artillery gun.
From the receiving end, I've been in a burning APC. And I've been engaging an enemy gunboat that's also disabled. And we're just battling it out, and their gunboat just can't kill me. They fire like 10 mags at me while I'm burning, and they can't kill me. It's actually pretty hilarious, but really unbalanced.
Here's my hot take. Here's my hot take. You don't usually... Actually, Markfoot, did you have something?
Yeah, no. I have a question. Like, usually things like requiring multiple
people
artillery pieces, but holding less ammo each and having to load it manually is something that is cool, but causes more work for like Logi. It's just like, how would you work around that sort of a challenge? Because that's probably the first thing that
I think, since you're getting higher hit point value in structures, is maybe you could just keep the current FA slightly the same, because the current FA is not as much an artillery piece as is kind of like a long range sniper right currently.
Yeah, it's
because like even the gunboat shell has a bigger area of explosion. The HE shell and the AP shell have a little bit more, but it's not something you even really bomb out with. So maybe if like you come up with the next tier of artillery, maybe that's how that would operate, which is kind of similar to how you have the storm cannon operating. So maybe, if the FA is, I don't know exactly what caliber of gun, maybe somewhere between 76 millimeter and 124 millimeter right now, you put the next classification of gun that maybe you would put in later on, or something like that. That's kind of how maybe that would operate.
Yeah, there's a thought. Sometimes it's hard to have like an immediate reaction to these things because you have to like analyze the 50 different ways. This will probably break something else, but
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, well, that's one thing. That's one thing I wanted to ask you, the devs about, is because these structures are getting more and more hit points, and like I said, we used 80 crates of HEFA shells to get through this town.
You mean
and if you think about the amount of resources, that's that's a ton of HE mat. So it's like maybe we're starting to get to the point where we need the tools that are a little more, we need a little bigger tools for these bunker bases you guys are giving us to attack.
I think players would just love to have artillery batteries be practical, because you don't need artillery batteries. I mean, you can have it, but some dude will just run around the flank with some sticky bombs and kill it all.
Yeah,
that's
think
why
about
people use 1FA.
A howitzer shoots 150 meters. A lot of times you see the 6 battery, 8 battery howitzer to kill a tier 3 town hall. When in reality, you could really build those FAs in 8 different locations and give them 8 different coordinates, and it'd be a 10 times better system because you'd be less susceptible to attack. But most of the times we like to build them because it's a big fun thing to build a big battery and attack it in a big battery. So it's that kind of thing. We already kind of do that with the I mean, a lot of players still do line them up. It might be something that we don't do, and maybe a lot of the other better players don't necessarily do. They just use 1FA solo because the HE shells do a lot of damage, but they're very weak. So if you bring up 2, you're really, the amount of cost you're bringing up to the battlefield is, if you lose it, you could be costing yourself more than a day of farming to get these expensive shells.
I also theorize that maybe to also encourage the use of artillery batteries, add a slight amount of inaccuracy to the guns, so that if you want to completely destroy a target, you might need to hit it with multiple shells to get a good hit, or
like field artillery.
Yeah.
Because the howitzers obviously have that cone of.
But the howitzers are howitzers. You can't kill a tier 3
Right.
tower.
That's big, but maybe like a slight degree, like 1 or 2 degree azimuth, something
not
like
much.
that. Yeah.
To keep the old artillery players in the old meta happy for an extended period of time. Obviously, there's players who wouldn't want this change, but I think for the sake of the game, it might actually be better. for emergent purposes and for player purposes and for the cooperation between players you guys have always wanted.
Howitzers aren't 100% accurate,
Yeah,
They aren't
exactly.
accurate
FA.
as they are.
We know that. FA.
Yeah. So a lot of things to consider here, and again, like Kronus, we could go on for this for a long time. Unfortunately, we are at time. Gentlemen, Warden Navy, thank you so much for joining us. Please feel free to write all these things down.
Pleasure as always.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Have a good one. And again, we are at time. I want to thank the developers again for taking time. 40 minutes overtime out of the stated overtime that they had planned earlier, which is actually a lot better than we usually do. But KFC, Markfoot, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to sit down with the community and be part of the process and really help this process along. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you to all of our callers as well. And apologies, of course, to all the ones who weren't able to make it this time. But stick around next show and next call. And as always, keep the lively, healthy, completely cohesive and coherent discussion going on the Foxhole discussion channel and the FOD. That's always a pleasure. But we'll get back to it. And last thing we'll say is issue 13 of the PressCorps Bulletin is out now, detailing a lot of the almost encirclement of the deadlands that the Wardens were able to capture. Unfortunately, we don't quite have the time to finish the rest of the war in terms of other newspapers, just because all the people that know formatting and Photoshop are kind of busy at the moment. So hey, if you know Photoshop, maybe gonna stop by and we'll talk and we'll get some formatting done. But
you should teach me how to use Photoshop.
Hey, Raz, ping me whenever I'm available. But anyway, thank you, and stick around for more PressCorps Radio after this. Good night. I almost forgot. Good night and good fight.
The PressCorps is a non-profit creative collective of artists, reporters, and players from the MMO video game Foxhole by Clapfoot. Our mission is to engross our audience in and amplify the stories of this unique war ecosystem. The PressCorps was founded in early 2018 by former PlanetSide 2 Radio Free Araxis host, Captain-in-Arms. It is a separate community entity and is in no way representative of Clapfoot. For more info, visit the PressCorps Discord through the link below.